running nose, sinusitis, bronchitis, laryngitis, tracheitis, asthma, COPD, pneumonia, lung cancer. These are the various ailments that can occur in the chest. Pollution has two components, the particulate component and the gaseous component. So particulate component is according to size, PM10, which is 10 micron, and PM2.5, which is 2.5 micron. And now more and more important is being given to PM1, which is 1 micron, and less than 1, which is being called UFN, or ultra fine particle, UFP. And the difference is that PM10 stays in the nose, it doesn't go into the lungs. 2.5 crosses the nose and goes into the lungs but stays in the lungs. And 1 and less than 1 actually crosses the capillaries in the lungs and goes into the circulation. So it reaches directly into the bloodstream, thereby affecting every organ in the body. The other group is gases. So you have oxides of sulfur, which are called SOx. You have oxides of nitrogen, which are called NOx. You have carbon monoxide. You have ozone. You have various volatile organic compounds, which is known as VOCs. These are all primary things, and then these interact with each other and with humidity and form what are called secondary particles. Plus, you have specific industries which use various metals. So fumes coming out of those industries may be having specific chemicals and heavy metals, etc. So these are two broad categories, particulate matter and gaseous matter. All of them go inside the lungs. So entry point is the lungs. They cause damage to the lungs. They get absorbed from the lungs and go into the circulation, and then they reach every organ in the body. So the worst damage comes to lungs. When you have acute exposure, you can have itchiness in the nose, running nose, rhinitis, sinusitis. You have throat and larynx here, voice box. Yeah. So you get laryngitis. So the whole thing causes so much of irritation that the whole lung goes into spasm, and you can have acute attack of asthma occurring in those who are non-asthmatic. So many times we have in these high pollution days, we have otherwise normal people complaining of tightness in chest, breathlessness, etc. And on the other hand, those who are already known asthmatics have worsening of the symptoms. Then this exposure continues over a long period of time. It leads to something called COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, in which our airways become permanently narrowed and the lung alveoli, they become damaged and they dilate and they become big air spaces. So instead of a normal balloon-like compliant lungs, you have big bags filled with air, but their exchange capacity is reduced, thereby leading to less oxygen going to the body and less CO2 coming out of the body, and a term called respiratory failure. You have higher incidence of hypertension, that is blood pressure. You have 5 to 10 times higher incidence of heart attack in people who live in polluted areas. It goes to the brain. In children, it affects development of brain. It's a known fact that people who are exposed to much high levels of pollution from early childhood may not attain their optimum IQ level that they would have attained if they were in non-polluted areas. It leads to hyperactivity syndrome in children. It leads to neuroinflammation in the brain. And in the adults, it leads to 5 to 10 times higher incidence of brain attacks, which means paralytic attacks. So people who are exposed to high levels of pollution, their libido is decreased, their sexual performance is decreased, their sperm counts have also been shown to decrease. Pregnant ladies are affected, so it crosses the placenta, it goes into the baby, so you have higher incidence of congenital malformations in the babies, you have growth retardation, you have intrauterine death, you have premature deliveries, and you have all kinds of problems post-delivery. It affects children, it affects elderly, and it affects. So the only requirement for you to be affected is you should be breathing. If you breathe, you cannot escape the ill effects of air pollution.